They think he may have killed dozens and dozens of women. But for 15 years, investigators have failed to find a single body.
He was a predator, and he was a very good one, a very intelligent one.
Dozens of women were taken into David Parker Ray's toy box, a trailer turned torture chamber in Truth or Consequences.
You will probably scream a lot, and that is exactly what I want you to do.
That scared me to death, what I went through.
Ray tracked those kidnappings in his diary, but what wasn't written was what happened after he sexually tortured them.
Investigators suspect Ray may have killed as many as 40 women, but so far, no bodies have ever been found.
On March 22nd, 1999, a naked, terrified woman with a metal collar on her neck was seen running through the streets of New Mexico. She had escaped after being held captive by a sadistic sexual torturer known as the Toy Box Killer. Before he earned this nickname, he was only known as David Parker Ray. He was born on November 6, 1939, in Belen, New Mexico. His early life was full of instability and abuse. Ray's father, an alcoholic, was a violent man and eventually abandoned the family, leaving David and his younger sister to be raised by their strict and disciplinarian grandfather. This harsh environment, combined with an alleged early exposure to pornography, had profound influence on Ray's psychological development, steering him toward dark fantasies at a young age. By his teenage years, Ray was drawing disturbing images of women being tortured and had amassed a collection of bondage magazines. These fantasies grew more intense and elaborate over time, eventually leading him to construct his infamous toy box, a torture chamber filled with devices designed to inflict pain and suffering. What's truly sad is that his victims were often women from the fringes of society, prostitutes and drifters whose disappearances were less likely to draw any attention from society. Ray's ability to remain undetected was in part due to his meticulous planning and the remote, isolated location he chose. Truth or Consequences was a small town with a population of around 6,000 people. Known for its hot springs, the town was quiet and unassuming, far removed from the hustle and bustle of urban life. It was here, in this seemingly tranquil setting, that David Parker Ray carried out his heinous acts. The town was already infamous for bizarre criminal activity, but nothing could have prepared the community for the horrors that would come to light in 1999. On the 22nd of March 1999, the police received a call from a panicked local after 21-year-old Cynthia Vigil burst into a house. She was naked, except for a metal dog collar attached to a 6-foot chain.
The 911 operator did not believe her, so he dispatched officers out there. I had already ran. As I was running up the road, up Bass Road, I didn't know where I was at. I did not know where I was at. I did not know what direction I was going. I didn't know where to go. I was just looking for somewhere that looked like somebody was there. And I ran right into this trailer, and the lady was doing dishes. And I busted in her door and I grabbed her from behind and I asked her to help me. I had no clothes on. And she goes, "Are you okay?" And she grabbed the phone and dialed 911. And I remember she sat me down on this white stool and I was bloody and naked. And I left blood everywhere. And her husband came in and her husband was in shock. He stopped at the door and he couldn't move. He was like frozen. And she yelled at him to get me a robe. And she was like, "Get my pink robe, it's on the door." And he got it and he brought it in. She covered me with the pink robe. And I was telling them that they were going to be looking for me. They were going to come and get me.
Cynthia Vigil was a prostitute with a heroin addiction. When the police came, she told them she was abducted by a client and driven to a house on the outskirts of Truth or Consequences. She said that she was on a bed in a kind of expanded trailer house. She was naked, handcuffed, and had a collar around her neck, which was attached to a pole. She was given a bucket for a toilet and was sexually assaulted repeatedly. She was under the impression she was going to be killed, so she was desperate to get out. On the third day of her captivity, she fought with Ray's girlfriend and managed to escape out the back door.
The bed I was on and the living room floor, there was a little bit of a space, not a lot, but like the bed was 7 inches lower. But I was able to get the keys and by pulling the table to me with my feet. And I reached through the bars and got the keys, and I pushed the table back with my foot, but it snagged on the carpet and went crooked. I curled up in a ball where the lock was at against the wall, and I was trying every key, and it just seemed like nothing was opening it. And she came in and she seen I had the keys. At that point, I don't know where this ice pick came from, if she had it, if she stabbed me first or what. But I know I got beat with a lamp. I had been stabbed, and the phone ended up on the bed with me. But the lock came loose, and I got it unlocked. And when I got it unlocked, I picked up the phone and the ice pick, and I dialed 911. I dropped the phone, and I stabbed her, right here. And when she grabbed her head, I just jumped from the bed to the living room floor, and I ran out the front door.
The police drove to the location, and they found that the house belonged to David Parker Ray, a 59-year-old mechanic. Ray was arrested shortly thereafter, and the police obtained a search warrant for his house to corroborate the prostitute's allegations. Once inside the house, they found where Cynthia had been held. In the sunken living room area, they saw the bed, the pole, chains, and manacles. There was a bucket with her waist on the floor. There were obvious signs of a struggle and disarray in the room, but nothing could prepare them for what they would find inside this simple white trailer at the side of David Parker Ray's house. Inside the trailer, known as the toy box, was a torture chamber. The first thing that caught the eye was a black chair, which turned out to be a gynecology chair. There was medical equipment everywhere, drills modified with sexual devices on them, and cages.
Investigators open a padlocked semi-truck trailer next to the home.
Once we gained access to that, its purpose was very clear. It was a very sinister little travel trailer.
For the first time, investigators get a look inside what David Parker Ray calls the toy box.
When they went into the toy box, they found hundreds of torture devices. They found leg spreaders, soldering irons, chains, rubber ropes.
There were intubation tubes, an oxygen tank, just the most bizarre devices I had ever seen.
He was a mechanic, and so a lot of these things he designed himself. He had a machine that would shock women's breasts electrically. He would hook up this machine to their breasts and then turn on the power and then increase the power as they screamed for mercy.
It was unbelievable. This was a torture chamber David Parker Ray called Satan's Den. David was a mechanic, and he created several of those sex items by hand, and those were very sinister. David Parker Ray was known to be very adept with his hands, an excellent mechanic. One of the most disturbing aspects of Ray's crimes was a tape recording he played for his victims. It went on to describe the tortures they would face, ensuring they knew they were completely under his control. But Ray didn't work alone. His girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, was an accomplice in his crimes. Together, they would abduct, torture, and sometimes murder their victims. Hendy, who had a criminal background herself, was instrumental in helping Ray carry out his sadistic plans. Further investigation into Ray's activities revealed a chilling pattern. Over the years, he had meticulously documented his crimes. There were photographs and videotapes of his victims, many of whom were never identified. Ray kept detailed journals of his exploits, describing the methods of torture he used and the reactions of his victims. Then the police identified yet another villain in the story, Dennis Roy Yancey, a close friend of David Parker Ray, who played a major role in some of Ray's most heinous crimes. Yancey was directly involved in the murder of a young woman named Marie Parker. In July 1997, Marie was abducted by Ray and brought to his torture chamber. Yancey, under Ray's direction, strangled her to death with a rope. After his arrest, Yancey revealed crucial information to the authorities about the locations where Ray had allegedly disposed of his victims' bodies. According to him, Ray had meticulously chosen remote sites in the New Mexico desert to bury his victims, making it almost impossible to locate them. Despite Yancey's cooperation and detailed descriptions, the police researched for days and weeks, and still no bodies were recovered.
There's thousands upon thousands of deep, narrow ravines, nooks and crannies, and where do you look? We could be standing above her right now and never know it. And I often wonder how close did we actually come to her or some of the victims during the course of this.
Ray's daughter, Jessie Ray, was also involved in these terrible crimes. Jessie helped her father by luring victims to the torture chamber. She used herself to gain the trust of potential victims. Her involvement added another layer of horror, showing how Ray manipulated even his own family to carry out his evil plans. But as the case against Ray built up, more survivors came forward. Each had a harrowing story of abduction and torture. One woman, Kelly Garrett, testified that she was kidnapped in 1996. She was taken to the toy box, where she was drugged, raped, and tortured. Ray eventually released her, but she had repressed all memory of the events. But the investigation brought it all back. Another survivor, Angie Montano, recounted how she was kidnapped, tortured, and forced to endure unimaginable pain. She was kept in the toy box for days before being released, her mind shattered by the experience. The trial of David Parker Ray was a media sensation. The courtroom was packed with journalists and spectators, eager to hear the gruesome details of his crimes. Ray calmly maintained his innocence, claiming that his victims were willing participants in consensual BDSM activities.
He had been involved with women but denied committing any crimes.
She enjoyed it?
Has he ever tortured anyone?
No.
Did he kidnap anyone?
No.
So did Ray ever do anything against the wishes of a sex partner?
No. I get my excitement from making a woman happy. My trailer had numerous sex toys in it of different types, all different fetishes. I got pleasure out of the woman getting pleasure. I did what they wanted me to do.
However, the overwhelming evidence against him painted a different picture. In 2001, Ray was convicted of numerous charges, including kidnapping and torture. He was sentenced to 224 years in prison. However, Ray would not spend much time behind bars. He died of a heart attack in 2002, just a year after his conviction. Cindy Hendy, Ray's accomplice, was also brought to justice. She was sentenced to 36 years in prison, but was released on parole in 2019 after serving 20 years. The impact of David Parker Ray's atrocities extended far beyond his immediate victims. The town of Truth or Consequences was left grappling with the horror that had been lurking in their midst. The community, once known for its peaceful hot springs and small-town charm, was now synonymous with one of the most horrifying cases of serial sexual abuse and murder in American history. As we continue to unravel the mysteries of true crime, your support drives us forward. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay with us as we delve into the darkest corners of true crime. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and keep chasing cases.